another positive score for the Chelsea game. So moving in the right direction.
Gonzo?
Soucek got a 4.3. But he's gone. Jack's gone. He's gone. He's had enough. You can't. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not really. We've never really done Hammer of the Year with any sort of regularity at Hammer's Chat, which is a shame, isn't it? I think we've dabbled at it before, but it sort of got to the end of the season, and myself have said to Gio, or Gio said to me, so who do you think's Hammer of the Year? Well, you know what? I think I might give it to Player X. We've never actually had a player called Player X, by the way, but you never know. I'd tell you that would be cheap, won't it, to get his name printed on the back. But it was never done with any real science. So when we started doing our player ratings videos, which basically after each game, we basically give players, whoever started in the game, scores out of 10. Once we started to document it, we realised, well, hold on a second, we can do a Hammer of the Year. And that's what we're working towards, basically, each game we give players. I'm not going to reveal any there. I've shown you a blank page on purpose. We give players a mark out of 10. Now, our patron said to us, why don't you do a monthly Player of the Month? I thought, okay, we'll do that. So what I've got for you today is a snippet from our Player of the Month, which is housed over on Patreon. But basically what you've got are 4 players here. You've got Kehrer, Zouma, Rice and Soucek, and I've chosen those 4 for a very good reason, because the points go from the sublime to the ridiculous. It's not just myself doing it. We're joined by Jack from Hammerlytics, which is basically our podcast and I think it's the best show on West Ham YouTube. That's over on our Patreon channel. But also he's from Analytics United. You may remember him from the Transfer Deadline Day show. Very, very sharp football brain. I'm not talking about me and Gio there, of course. I'm talking about Jack. And so, yeah, in this we discussed all the players for the Player of the Month, but we thought we'd just cut out a little segment and share it with you. And it's actually come at a very, very good time for us over at Patreon, because we've actually reached our 100% target. The target we set when we launched Patreon, which would basically allow us to do this as a full-time job. We reached it half hour before I started recording this video. So thank you to everybody that's helped out on that. It is massively appreciated. And it allows us to do other, look, it's Charlie's his part-time job. Myself and Gio, it's a full-time job. We give money to a lot of people as well. We pay for people to come on and have interviews. Funny enough, we've got Harry Redknapp coming on. We've got Harry Redknapp coming on the channel on Friday. So I should probably say we're not giving Harry any money. Harry has actually said, can we give any money that we would pay him to guide dogs for the blind, which is really generous of him. Hasn't asked for any money himself at all. But it allows us to get these guests in, allows us to do other things. So, so by the way, if you want to come and join in, because you get to ask the questions when we have these guests. I think it's Ian Bishop next month. It was Tony Cotty last month. We've had Tony Carr on it. We've had loads basically. The patrons ask the questions. So if you would like to join Patreon, then check out the link below. It's patreon.com/Hammers Chat, and there's several different tiers. I'll let you check it out for yourself. But basically, you get a whole extra channel's worth of content, as well as discounts to our online store, and the store is amazing. Go and check that out as well. By the way, hammerschatstore.com. That's a lot of links to remember. You don't have to remember. They're in the link below. Anyway, enough of all that. Please go and check out. I don't mind pointing over there. It might be that way. You've got to press it. Wherever you're going to go and check out what myself, Gio and Jack gave those 4 players in terms of player ratings for the month. And what I would like to say, please excuse one of the ratings. I have to say that I did go away. I was on holiday and I missed the Viborg game and I missed the Aston Villa game, which meant 2 of our wins we had many this season weren't factored into my player ratings, which is why one of the players scored as low as he did.
Kurt Zouma, here we go. Now we're cranking up the numbers. What you got, Gonzo?
Well, I've got him up 5 games. I've seen Zouma play 5 times this season, and I have given him a 6 out of 10. And I think, just the point I'd like to make on the other ones, which I think he started off looking injured. I think he's playing his way through that injury, and he just seems to be getting better. There was a point where I was a little bit worried, actually, that maybe the injury wasn't getting better. I thought he might have to stop it. He might have to have surgery. Do you know what I mean? But I'll tell you what, I think particularly the last couple of games, he's looking back to his best, actually. So, the early sort of lower marks have certainly been boosted, and up, average of 6.
When Gonzo said he's getting back to his best, you did a little explain yourself, young man.
What did I do? What do you mean?
No, it was me. I think part of what's happened is our defensive structure has improved, and we've sat a little bit deeper against teams and encouraged crosses more. And I think where you saw him exposed was when we were playing a little bit higher and the teams playing through us, and he's having to do a lot of chasing back and stuff. I think if we did that next week, you'd see the same Zouma again.
Sure.
So I think actually it's the structure that's improved a lot, and you've seen loads of crosses, and that suits him because he can just sort of stand in the middle of the box and leap and get onto things and head them out of the box.
Yeah, no, we did say with myself and Gia, just say we felt the tactics against Chelsea suited Zouma, but certainly didn't suit Paqueta.
No, I've got Zouma on a 6.4. Pretty good so far. I think he got a 5 against Brighton, which is my only rating that I wasn't particularly impressed with him in. The others, all 6s, 7s, 1-8 against Villa.
Yeah, I've got him at 6.33. Shaky start to the season due to the tactics and his injury, but the last 3 games I've been very impressed by him. Chelsea, Tottenham and Aston Villa, strong performances there from Kurt Zouma. And Thilo Kehrer came into the team at the same time as Zouma started playing well. You know, that's a partnership. It's not an individual player getting better. It's a partnership getting better. Ben Johnson's come out of the team. Kehler's got in. Zouma's got better. Is it a coincidence? No. I don't believe in coincidences after 3 games with evidence. That's no longer a coincidence. That is proof. So Kurt Zouma, 6.33 for me. And I expect that to start creeping up a little bit as long as Thilo Kehler's next to him and we're playing relatively deep. Now, speaking of Thilo Kehrer, I've got him on a 6.8, which is a big score so far. But I've been very, very impressed by him. A couple of sort of man-of-match contender performances. I did give him the man-of-match for myself against Spurs. It must be, looking at my numbers, it must be Tottenham game I gave man-of-match, or it was a Villa one. There was either one. Big performances on both. Not as good against Chelsea, but still a very solid performance at Stamford Bridge. A couple of shaky starts, but I don't really care. You know, I know he conceded a pen against Brighton, but Zouma sold him out massively. Own goal, don't care. If anything, I'm going to give him an extra mark for nicking the goal from Son. So 6.8 for me for Kehrer. What are you two saying?
Jack?
I've got him on 7. Really good so far. Really, really good so far. Especially in the Viborg game. First game he came in, he was exceptional. Just missed out on a 9 in that game, got an 8. But yeah, really impressed. And similar, just to sort of reference the Johnson thing, I think sometimes players can make one mistake in otherwise good performances and still get a 6 out of 10. And I think Kehrer had a couple of those so far this season.
Absolutely. Obviously, I've not got the average of you guys. I've got only 3 games to give the average on for Kehrer, but I've got him on a 6.6. And I mean, like you were just alluding to there was obviously a mix-up for the Chelsea goal, and you know you could pin that on any number of things, be it the goalkeeper, be it the mix-up between Soufal and Kehrer, or you know whatever the case may be. I still thought he was part of a really, really good defensive line. Obviously, I don't have the Villa game in there, but like yourself, Gio, I had him man of the match against Tottenham. I think he's been a hell of a signing, and I can give you an early little indicator that at 6.6, he is jointly my player of the month.
Oh no, I've got 2 or 3 players. I've got one comfortably ahead of him and one bang on equal, actually.
Kehrer comes second for me. Johnson first, Kehrer second.
Ooh, I've got somebody different to you two, so this will be interesting. I think people could guess right now. I think the people watching this will know exactly who I'm referring to. Bon, I mean, there's not much point in discussing him in too much depth. He's only started 2 games, but Jack's got these substitution appearances in there as well. So I've given him a 6 overall. I thought he was a bit iffy in the first one. A lot of people were praising him left, right, and centre, and I thought it was a solid enough performance. But I thought he was quite rusty as well, late on a couple of challenges and stuff. And I thought, you're lucky you're playing a Danish side here, because then you do that in the Premier League against someone like Harry Kane. Someone's in on goal if you can fly out defence like that. So I thought he got that bit much stronger in the second game. So an overall a 6 for myself. Jack, what have you got? Because like I said, you should have another couple of substitutes in there.
I've got a 5.33 that will come down again after the Chelsea game. I think the 2 Viborg games, he was quite good in the first halves and really poor in the second halves. Came on and really negatively impacted our performance against Spurs. I don't think that's entirely his fault. It's a difficult thing. I think when you haven't got full match fitness to come up against a fresh Richarlison who's really keen to make an impact. But then sort of key mistakes in that game, and then key mistakes again against Chelsea.
Can I just ask, actually, Jack? I mean, bearing in mind you're doing substitute appearances and we're not. How do you assess? How do you score a substitute? Bearing in mind they don't have the same amount of time to make an impact. Is it a pro rata thing? Do you just sort of scale it down a little bit? What you'd expect them to do in those 20 minutes? Are you still scoring out of 10? How's that working for you?
This is a horrible thing to have to explain. It's
Sorry.
you don't
have to.
No, it's fine. I've got basically every game I do the full review, and in doing that I go through every individual player's actions and then record those inside an algorithm that I've spent about 7 years building. So it's a Excel sheet which I input all of their match data into it, and then my own personal opinions about certain things that have changed, that are ranked over 7 years of experience, working out what are my biases and stuff, so it's as even as possible. And then at the end of that it gives a number, and then that number is correlated against like an average of all substitute performances, so it's scaled down to be at least sort of somewhat accurate.
I think that's amazing. Yeah,
a bit more complicated than mine. That is, I just get a pen and paper and think I'm going to give him this.
Well, yeah, and you need things like, if I had the algorithm, it'd have to be like when he got when Richarlison sped past Ogbonna. I think I said something like it was like an old tanker stuck in treacle. I'm not sure how you put that into an algorithm and how you score that. Probably be negatively scored. I can't do a.
It's an interesting question though, isn't it? Because surely then, let's say Maxwell Cornet's goal stood against Chelsea, surely he's then getting a 9 or a 10 because he's come off the bench for 10 minutes and scored a last-minute goal. You've got to give him big marks, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Level of impact has got to be huge. Yet the guy who's played 90 minutes, not done one mistake, getting a 6 because he did nothing on the ball. But he did nothing wrong either. So it's difficult. I think that's why we leave out substitutions, because the scoring can be drastic, can't it? It's like 90 minutes. It's a bit more fair because it's like you can make up for your mistakes, but also if you do something good, you can almost level it out a little bit and bring your score down. Whereas subs, I find it could be anything between like a 2 and a 10 pretty easily, and you're only on the pitch for 10 minutes. So
I think it's maybe important to say that I don't do sub performances if they've played less than 15 minutes, because I think it's too volatile at that point. And also if they've played 20-25 and they haven't made enough actions in that period, they won't get a rating either. There's a level of actions that they need to have in the game, and then an amount of time that they need to have played for them to be eligible for a rating.
And by actions, you mean passes, sprints, tackles, just anything, basically.
Anything that's recorded in their match data, it has to be a minimum level for them to get a rating.
Well, let's move into midfield then. Gonzo, kick us off with Declan Rice, actually, because this is an interesting score, I feel.
Well, it is. Okay, I've given Rice, I've got quite a generous number of games here as a cross-section, 5 games. I've been able to appraise Rice on, and I've given him a 6, which is a good mark.
Higher than I expected. I'll be honest with you.
Really, you don't. Well, I know. I'm not going to say you don't think he's. It is okay. I think he's been good this season. But I think the first couple of games he looked like he didn't want to be here. And what you've got to remember is with mine, I mean, I think he'd be a lot higher. I didn't see the Villa game, so I'm assuming he played bloody well against Aston Villa. So. Yeah, I guess it would be higher, and he'd be in contention with the top 2 guys on the Gonzo index.
Favoritism. What have you got, Jack?
I have Rice down on a 6.4, which is very low for Rice. It's still decent compared to everyone else, and that's just because he's such a good player that he gets through loads of stuff every game and tends to get a 6 even when he hasn't performed really well, because he's still really important. But compared to his usual, he's usually miles ahead of everyone else. He's usually sitting sort of 7.4, way out in front of anyone else in the team, so massive drop off from him.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting way, the fact that you include the data, because he's always in the top 3 for passes per game, for example, for West Ham. He's always up there for everything. I was looking at the Chelsea numbers and interceptions. He's got more than the whole Chelsea team combined, just himself. He's got 5 and Chelsea got 3. So when you include data, it does sort of elevate him a bit. But I've got him at 5.83. I think he was very, very poor by his standards for the Nottingham Forest game and the Brighton game. Stronger performances. I thought he was all right against Villa, but much better against Chelsea and Tottenham, and he's definitely going in the right direction. But 5.83 for me is really low for Declan. Even if last season he'd have a poor game by my standards, he'd still get 6, because he was still doing everything else and still impacting the game, just not to his high level. And you have to consider how we rate Declan, i.e., do you think he's world class or not? And if so, then the expectancy is he's hitting a 6 minimum every single game because he's that much better than his colleagues. So I've given him a 5.3, and it's not the worst score. It's near the bottom for me, but it's the most disappointing score, I would say, out of everybody that we're discussing today. Moving on to Tomas Soucek. What have you got him sitting at then, Jack? Because this is the guy that's probably hitting, I imagine, he's top for XG for West Ham this season. So if you're taking stuff like that into consideration, again, that's going to boost his numbers, right?
Yep. He's on 6.14, which is pretty poor for him as well. Really dragged down by the start of the season. The midfield partnership was just really poor in the opening few games. So got a really poor rating against Man City, where he couldn't handle the rotations at all on his side of the pitch between Cancelo and Gundogan. Also poor rating in the first leg against Viborg, where I thought it was kind of set up for him to dominate the midfield, and he really didn't at all. But then in recent games, similarly to Rice, he's really picked up and got some positive scores in the Villa game and the Spurs game. He'll get another positive score for the Chelsea game. So moving in the right direction.
Gonzo?
Soucek got a 4.3. But he's gone. Jack's gone. He's gone. He's had enough. You can't. I'm sorry. Well, I'm not really. You can't score a 1 out of 10 against Brighton and have anything but a poor average mark. That was the most stinky. Excellent. You want to give me a job, don't you, Jack?
See, there you go. There you go, Jack. This is player ratings by emotions at its finest.
I'm pulling up my Brighton ratings just to see what they are.
It was stinky. It was absolutely stinky. And basically, like you got your heat map, Jack, right? You've got a heat map, right? Basically, the middle bit, you've probably got a heat map there, haven't you? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why wasn't he stood next to Declan Rice through that game? I don't know. He kept on popping up on the right. He kept on disappearing. Basically, he kept on vacating midfield as far as I could see. And also, I thought he couldn't pass. I thought he couldn't control it. No pass, no control. Anyway, it's not about the Brighton game. We've done that. You can go back and watch that if you want. It's a good review. It's a terrible review, by the way. Tomas Soucek, I'll say this much now. His average for the month is 4.3, and he ain't the worst player.
Oh.
I've got him at 5.62. I think I've got the City game. I've battered him for that one. In the first leg of Viborg, I battered him for that one because next to Connor Coventry, I wanted to see Soucek, the senior centre midfielder, and he wasn't that. Declan Rice played in that game. Rice would have been dribbling through their midfield. And that first game, they had more possession than we did, and it was embarrassing to watch from that aspect. I was bored watching it from that. They were a nice footballing side, but the second leg, they didn't look that good. We took complete control, especially the second half in Denmark. We were in complete control. Where was that in the first leg? And part of that, to me, was down to Tomas Soucek. But again, strong performances against Chelsea, against Tottenham, against Aston Villa. The Viborg second leg, much, much better from him now. I think he's getting into the game a lot more. He's sort of his limitations in possession, I don't think, are being emphasized as much in these games. The Brighton game, how many passes did he do that game, Jack? Have you got that to hand?
I haven't got it to hand, no.
Why have you got 3? He didn't do 3 passes.
3 passes. And he missed.
I'm sure it was.
He missed 2.5 of those.
I'm sure it was alarmingly low for a centre midfielder, but
I can get it right now if you like.
Yeah.
-3 actions.
I'm sure when I looked at it, it was like really low figures for a centre midfielder playing 90 minutes of a game, and I think McAllister had something like ridiculous amount.
Brighton, okay, yeah. So Soucek completed 27 passes from 40 attempts against Brighton.
What's McAllister there?
Alexis McAllister, 58 from 66.
Yeah, 58 passes compared to double the amount of Tomas Soucek. I know it's the way Brighton play and stuff, but I find it a tough watching our lump jog around the middle, and I'm watching McAllister, the guy who's got a funny surname, running around controlling the pitch. I mean, to be fair, he had an unbelievable game against Leicester yesterday. McAllister's just in the form of his life at the minute, but Soucek, 5.62. Again, Connor Coventry, there's not much point doing him, really, but what have you got, Jack, just out of interest?
5, and he was lucky to get that, really. I thought he was really poor.
Sorry, what did Jack have for Soucek?
6.14.
Okay, cheers. That's fine.
Because of his XG.
It's
No,
not
it's-
because of
it's-
his XG, by the way.
No,
It actually isn't because of his XG, but
it's fine. It's fine. I think if I'd have had, as you said, he played well against Villa and Viborg second game. If I'd have had those to my average, it'd have been boosted up.